Elena Vasquez stood at the center of the massive circular chamber, her black diplomatic uniform crisp and professional. Around her, hundreds of alien beings sat in floating seats that rose in perfect rings toward the domed ceiling. The Galactic Council's Entertainment Committee had gathered to review Earth's application for membership, and Elena could feel thousands of eyes watching her every move. The chamber itself was a marvel of alien engineering. Soft blue light emanated from crystalline walls, and the air carried the faint hum of translation devices working overtime to convert her words into dozens of different languages. Some council members communicated through color changes in their skin, others through musical tones, and a few species seemed to speak entirely through scent. Elena took a deep breath and activated her holographic display. Images of Earth appeared in the air above her head. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds swirling in perfect patterns. "Honored council members," Elena began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustic systems. "I am Ambassador Elena Vasquez of the United Earth Federation. Today I present humanity's cultural contributions to the galactic community." A low, chittering sound came from the Zephyrian section. These insect-like beings with their 6 arms and compound eyes had been Earth's first alien contact 3 years ago. Their translator converted the chittering into standard galactic. Another primitive species seeking entertainment status. How refreshing. Elena ignored the comment and continued her presentation. Earth has a rich tradition of storytelling, mythology, and historical records. Our species has always looked to the stars and dreamed of the day we would join the greater galactic family. The holographic display shifted to show images of ancient Earthships, wooden vessels with white sails crossing vast oceans. Then came metal ships powered by steam, followed by massive aircraft carriers cutting through blue waters. Our naval traditions span thousands of years, Elena explained. From the ancient Greeks who fought at Salamis, to the British fleet that ruled Earth's oceans, to the modern carriers that projected power across our world's seas. A crystalline being in the Veltar section began to glow with what Elena's briefing materials had identified as amusement. The creature looked like a walking diamond, with faceted surfaces that reflected the chamber's light in rainbow patterns. When it spoke, its voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Wooden boats and metal ships?" The Veltar representative said. "How wonderfully primitive. Do these humans still think such ancient vessels matter in an age of faster-than-light travel?" More laughter rippled through the chamber. Elena felt her jaw tighten, but she maintained her professional smile. These historical examples demonstrate humanity's strategic thinking and tactical innovation. For instance, at the Battle of Midway in our year 1942, a small human fleet defeated a much larger enemy force through superior planning and courage. The chittering from the Zephyrian section grew louder. Superior planning? Against their own species? How impressive, the translator converted mockingly. Elena pressed on, showing images of famous human military leaders. Our species produced remarkable strategic minds. Alexander the Great conquered most of the known world with innovative tactics. Admiral Nelson revolutionized naval warfare at Trafalgar. General Patton pioneered armored warfare techniques that are still studied today. A gaseous being from the Nethrim delegation floated closer to Elena's platform. The Nethrim looked like a cloud of purple smoke contained within a transparent environmental suit. When it spoke, the voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "These remarkable strategic minds fought wars against other humans, correct?" the Nethrim asked. "They never faced real challenges like quantum-shifted battle cruisers or plasma-beam destroyers. Their victories mean nothing in the context of galactic warfare." The chamber erupted in what Elena could only describe as alien laughter. The Zephyrians chittered, the Veltar glowed brighter, and the Nethrim's gaseous form pulsed with darker colors. Even species she couldn't identify joined in the mockery. Council Speaker Zixthara called for order. The speaker belonged to a species called the Cathari, tall, thin beings with gray skin and large black eyes. "Ambassador Vasquez," Zixthara said in a voice like rustling leaves. "While we appreciate Earth's colorful historical stories, this committee deals with applications for galactic membership. What actual military or strategic capabilities does humanity possess?" Elena activated another section of her holographic display. Images appeared showing Earth's space stations, orbital platforms, and the handful of interstellar vessels humanity had built since making contact with galactic civilization. "Earth maintains a growing space fleet," Elena said. We have orbital defense platforms, mining vessels, and exploration ships. Our military academies train officers in both traditional Earth tactics and modern space warfare theory. The Zephyrian representative made a dismissive gesture with 2 of its 6 arms. Space warfare theory? Based on what experience? Humans have never fought a real space battle. Your military academies teach ancient history that has no relevance to galactic conflict. Furthermore, added the Veltar delegate, its crystalline form pulsing with amused light. Our intelligence reports indicate that humanity possesses no significant military spacecraft. Your largest vessel is smaller than a Galactic Defense Force patrol boat. What exactly do you teach at these academies of yours? Elena felt heat rising in her cheeks, but she kept her voice steady. We study historical battles, strategic principles, and tactical innovation. Human military theory emphasizes adapting to overcome superior forces through creativity and determination. The laughter grew louder. A species Elena didn't recognize, beings that looked like walking trees with silver bark, began making sounds like wind through branches. Their translator rendered this as applause, but clearly the mocking kind. Creativity and determination, repeated the Nethrim delegate, its gaseous form now pulsing with what Elena's briefings had identified as contempt. How quaint. In real galactic warfare, you need energy shields that can deflect stellar-class weapons, quantum drives that can outrun light itself, and tactical computers that can calculate 1,000,000 variables per microsecond. What good are your ancient human stories against technology like that? Council Speaker Zix Thara raised one long, thin hand. Ambassador Vasquez, while we find Earth's mythological tradition amusing, this committee must evaluate practical contributions to galactic society. Your species appears to excel at entertainment value, but we see no evidence of actual military or strategic capability. Elena's hands clenched into fists at her sides, but her voice remained diplomatic. Honored Speaker, I would argue that humanity's greatest strength lies not just in our current capabilities, but in our historical pattern of rising to meet seemingly impossible challenges. Impossible challenges? The Zephyrian delegate's compound eyes seemed to shimmer with amusement. Ambassador, you speak of human naval battles as though they were significant military achievements. But these conflicts involve primitive weapons, simple tactics, and limited geographic scope. Modern galactic warfare operates on scales your species cannot even comprehend. The Veltar representative's crystalline surface flashed with bright patterns. Indeed, when the Hegemony War consumed 17 star systems, fleets numbering in the tens of thousands clashed across light years of space. Single battles involved more energy than your entire planet produces in a century. What possible relevance could human naval traditions have to conflicts of such magnitude? Elena looked around the chamber, seeing dismissal and condescension on every alien face she could read. These beings saw humanity as nothing more than primitive entertainers, storytellers whose greatest achievements were curiosities from a bygone age. I understand your skepticism, Elena said finally, but I would ask the Council to consider that every great galactic civilization once started as a single-planet species with nothing but determination and ingenuity. The Nethrim delegate pulsed with darker colors. Determination and ingenuity are admirable qualities, Ambassador, but they are not sufficient for galactic citizenship. We require practical capabilities, proven technologies, and demonstrated military strength. Earth possesses none of these things. Council Speaker Zix Thara stood, signaling that the hearing was coming to an end. The Entertainment Committee will vote on Earth's application, the Speaker announced. All those in favor of granting humanity provisional membership status? Helena watched as not a single hand, claw, tentacle, or appendage rose in the chamber. Motion fails unanimously, Zix Thara declared. Ambassador Vasquez, we suggest that humanity focus on developing its natural talents for storytelling and entertainment. Perhaps in a few centuries, when your species has matured beyond its current primitive state, we might reconsider. The council members began filing out of the chamber, their conversations filled with references to amusing human myths and primitive naval stories. Elena stood alone on the platform, watching the beings who had just dismissed her entire species as nothing more than cosmic comedians. She activated her personal communicator and sent a coded message to Earth. Package delivery required. Full catalog. 3 months had passed since the Galactic Council's humiliating rejection of Earth's membership application. Ambassador Elena Vasquez had returned to the human embassy on the neutral world of Harmony Station, where she spent her days filing reports and watching galactic news feeds with growing concern. The news was not good. Elena sat in her office, watching the latest emergency broadcast from the Galactic Defense Force headquarters. The holographic display showed Admiral Kethvar, a Zephyrian military leader, whose compound eyes reflected the emergency lighting of his command center. "The outer rim colony of Kethmore has gone silent," Admiral Kethvar announced, his 6 arms gesturing at tactical displays behind him. "All communication ceased exactly 47 hours ago. Long-range sensors detect massive energy signatures consistent with industrial-scale molecular disassembly." Elena leaned forward in her chair. Molecular disassembly was a theoretical weapon that most galactic species considered too dangerous to develop. The process could break down entire planets into their component atoms. The Admiral continued his briefing. "Scout ships report mechanical constructs of unknown origin in the Kethmore system. These entities appear to be systematically harvesting all matter in the system, planets, asteroids, even the star's outer corona. We have designated these entities as devourers until proper classification can be established." A chill ran down Elena's spine. She had read about the devourers in classified galactic archives. They were a theoretical threat that military strategists had worried about for centuries, self-replicating. Machines that consumed entire star systems to build more of themselves. The broadcast switched to grainy footage from a Galactic Defense Force reconnaissance probe. Elena watched in horror as massive mechanical structures, each the size of a small moon, surrounded Kethmore. Swarms of smaller machines moved like metallic insects across the planet's surface, stripping away mountains and oceans with terrifying efficiency. "The Galactic Defense Force is mobilizing all available fleets," Admiral Kethvar announced. "We estimate the Devourer force at approximately 50,000 individual units. Our combined fleets total nearly 70,000 vessels. We will engage the enemy within the next standard week." Elena switched off the broadcast and stared at her reflection in the dark screen. 50,000 devourers. She had studied galactic military history during her diplomatic training, and no single battle had ever involved forces of such magnitude. Her communicator chimed with an incoming message. Elena activated the device and found herself looking at Council Speaker Zixthara. The Cathari leader's normally composed expression showed signs of strain. "Ambassador Vasquez," Zixthara said without preamble, "the Council requires immediate evacuation assistance for human colonies in the Outer Rim sectors. The Devourer threat is advancing faster than predicted." Elena raised an eyebrow. 3 months ago, these same beings had dismissed humanity as primitive entertainers. Now they were asking for help. "I'll need to consult with Earth Command about available transport vessels," she replied diplomatically. "Time is critical," Zixthara pressed. "Our projections show the Devourers could reach the core worlds within 6 months if they are not stopped. Every civilian evacuation ship we can acquire will save lives." "I understand the urgency," Elena said. "I'll contact Earth immediately." She closed the communication and opened a quantum channel to Earth. Within moments, the familiar face of Admiral Sarah Chen appeared on her screen. Chen was a small woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She had been Elena's military liaison during the membership application process. "Elena," Admiral Chen said, her voice calm despite the crisis unfolding across the galaxy. "I've been monitoring the situation. Are you safe on Harmony Station?" "For now," Elena replied. "The Council wants us to provide evacuation ships for human colonies in the Outer Rim." "And what do you recommend?" Chen asked. Elena paused, thinking carefully about her next words. "I recommend we do whatever is necessary to protect human lives. But I also think the Council might benefit from knowing about our other capabilities." A slight smile crossed Admiral Chen's face. "Our other capabilities?" "I'm not sure what you mean, Ambassador. According to galactic intelligence reports, Earth has no significant military assets." "Of course," Elena said, understanding the game they were playing. "No significant military assets at all. Just a few exploration vessels and mining platforms." "Exactly," Chen nodded. "Nothing that could possibly threaten a planetary defense grid, let alone an invasion force of mechanical monsters. We're just simple humans with our amusing myths and primitive naval stories." Elena felt a surge of anticipation. So what should I tell the Council about Earth's response to the Devourer crisis? Admiral Chen's expression became serious. Tell them we're aware of the situation, and that Earth's response is en route. We'll do whatever we can to help. And what exactly is en route? Elena asked. Oh, just some old friends, Chen replied mysteriously. Ships with names the galaxy has heard before, but never quite believed in. The kind of vessels that exist only in human myths and legends. The communication ended, leaving Elena staring at a blank screen. She felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. Whatever Earth was planning, it was clearly much larger than anyone outside their own species suspected. 2 days later, Elena received another emergency communication from Council Speaker Zix Thara. This time, the Cathari leader looked genuinely frightened. Ambassador, Zix Thara said, his voice shaking slightly. The Galactic Defense Force engaged the Devourers at Kethmore 6 hours ago. Admiral Kethvar's entire fleet. They're gone. Elena felt her stomach drop. Gone? What do you mean, gone? 70,000 ships, Ambassador. The most advanced military force in galactic history. The battle lasted less than 4 hours. Our long-range sensors show nothing but wreckage and Devourer construction platforms. The implications hit Elena like a physical blow. If the combined might of the Galactic Defense Force could be wiped out in 4 hours, what hope did anyone have against these mechanical monsters? The Devourers are already moving to their next target, Zix Thara continued. Nexus Prime, an industrial world with 3 billion inhabitants. They'll reach it within days. What about evacuation? Elena asked. Impossible. We don't have enough ships left to evacuate even a fraction of the population. The Defense Force reserves are still weeks away from deployment. Zix Thara paused, and Elena could see desperation in the alien's large black eyes. Ambassador, does Earth have any vessels that could assist with evacuation efforts? Anything at all? Elena considered her response carefully. I'll contact Earth Command immediately. She closed the communication and opened another channel to Admiral Chen. This time, the Admiral appeared to be on a ship's bridge, with officers moving purposefully in the background. Elena, Chen said, I assume you've heard about the Defense Force. 70,000 ships destroyed in 4 hours, Elena confirmed. The galaxy is in panic, and now they're asking for our help, Chen observed. The same beings who laughed at our primitive naval traditions 3 months ago. Admiral, do we actually have anything that can help? These Devourers just wiped out the most advanced military force in the galaxy. Chen's smile was cold and confident. Elena, the galaxy made a mistake when they dismissed our naval traditions as amusing myths. They forgot that human naval history isn't just stories about wooden ships and ancient battles. It's a complete military philosophy based on one simple principle. When you're outnumbered and outgunned, you don't win by fighting fair. What are you saying? I'm saying that while the galaxy was building bigger and more advanced fleets, humanity was building something else entirely. Something they never bothered to look for because they were too busy laughing at our myths. Elena felt her pulse quicken. What kind of something? The kind that turns legends into reality, Chen replied. Tell the Council that Earth's Warfleet will handle the situation at Nexus Prime. Earth's Warfleet? Elena repeated in confusion. What Warfleet? The Council's intelligence reports show we have maybe a dozen significant vessels. Admiral Chen's smile widened. The Council's intelligence reports show exactly what we wanted them to show. They've been looking for the wrong things in the wrong places. While they were cataloging our obvious ships, they never thought to check the places where impossible ships might hide. I don't understand. You will, Chen promised. In about 6 hours, every being in the galaxy is going to learn that human myths aren't just stories. They're blueprints. Elena stared at the Admiral's confident expression, trying to process what she was hearing. Are you telling me that Earth has been hiding a secret military force? I'm telling you that humanity learned a valuable lesson from our own history, Chen replied. When Admiral Nelson faced the combined French and Spanish fleets at Trafalgar, he was outnumbered almost 2 to 1. When the Greek fleet fought the Persians at Salamis, they faced impossible odds. When Midway turned the tide in the Pacific, a handful of American carriers defeated a force that should have been unstoppable. Those were different times, Elena protested. This is modern galactic warfare. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened within hours of the Nexus Prime incident. The great chamber that had once echoed with laughter at human myths now buzzed with nervous energy and fearful whispers. Every seat was filled and additional representatives attended via hologram from across the galaxy. Council Speaker Zix Thara called for order, but his usual commanding presence seemed diminished. The tall Kthari leader's black eyes darted nervously around the chamber as he spoke. "Fellow council members," Zix Thara began, "we have gathered to address the unprecedented events at Nexus Prime. A single human vessel designated USS Leviathan destroyed an entire Devourer fleet of 5,000 constructs in 17 minutes. The chamber erupted in concerned chatter. Admiral Kethvar, the Zephyrian military commander who had survived the disaster at Kethmore, raised 4 of his 6 arms for attention. Council Speaker, Admiral Kethvar said, his compound eyes reflecting the chamber's blue light. Our intelligence services have conducted extensive reviews of human military capabilities. According to every assessment, humanity possesses no vessels larger than exploration-class ships. The technology displayed by this Leviathan exceeds our understanding by centuries." The crystalline Veltar representative, Diplomat Genara, began glowing with agitated patterns. "Our quantum sensors detected energy signatures that shouldn't be possible. The human ship's weapons operated on principles that violate known physics. How does a species we classified as primitive entertainers possess such advanced technology?" Before anyone could answer, the chamber's main display activated. Ambassador Elena Vasquez appeared, but she was not alone. Beside her stood a woman in a crisp military uniform with silver stars on her shoulders. "Honored Council," Elena said, her voice carrying none of the desperation it had held 3 months earlier. "I present Fleet Admiral Sarah Chen of Earth Command." Admiral Chen stepped forward, her gray hair and calm expression commanding immediate attention. She looked exactly like what she was, a career military officer who had seen combat and understood strategy. "Council members," Admiral Chen began, "I understand you have questions about recent events. I'm here to provide answers." Council Speaker Zix Thara leaned forward in his seat. "Admiral Chen, our intelligence reports indicate that humanity has no significant military vessels. Yet your ship Leviathan demonstrated capabilities far beyond anything in our databases. How do you explain this contradiction?" Admiral Chen smiled slightly. "The explanation is simple, Speaker Zix Thara. Your intelligence reports show exactly what we wanted them to show." The chamber fell silent. Even the usual background hum of translation devices seemed to quiet. 3 years ago, when humanity first made contact with galactic civilization, we faced a choice, Chen continued. We could reveal our true capabilities and likely be viewed as a threat, or we could let you see us as harmless storytellers while we learned about galactic politics. Diplomat Genara's crystalline form flashed with angry light. "Are you saying you deliberately deceived the Council?" "I'm saying we practice good operational security," Chen replied calmly. "When you're the new species in a galaxy full of civilizations that have existed for millennia, it pays to be cautious." Admiral Kethvar chittered with agitation. "Operational security? You hid an entire military fleet from galactic intelligence services?" "Not just a fleet, Admiral," Chen said. "An entire military philosophy that your people never thought to look for." She activated her own holographic display, and the chamber gasped collectively. The display showed hundreds of ships emerging from what looked like empty space. Each vessel was enormous, sleek, and bore names written in human characters. "You see," Chen explained, "while your intelligence services were cataloging our obvious ships, our exploration vessels, mining platforms, and diplomatic transports, they never thought to look in the places where impossible ships might hide." The display zoomed in on individual vessels. Elena recognized some of the names from her diplomatic briefings: USS Yamato, HMS Victory, USS Constitution, USS Enterprise. Each ship looked like it had been designed by someone who understood both beauty and lethality. "These names," Chen continued, "come from human naval history. But you dismissed our naval traditions as primitive myths, so you never considered that we might be building ships based on those mythical designs." Council Speaker Zix Thara's voice carried a tremor of fear. "How many ships are we looking at, Admiral?" "This particular formation shows 374 vessels," Chen replied matter-of-factly. "But this is just one of several fleets we've positioned throughout the galaxy over the past 3 years." The silence in the chamber was absolute. Elena could see alien faces, or what passed for faces among the various species, expressing shock, fear, and dawning comprehension. The Nethrim representative, its gaseous form pulsing with dark colors, finally spoke. You're saying humanity has been secretly building a military force while pretending to be harmless entertainers? I'm saying, Chen corrected, that humanity has been preparing for the kind of threats that galactic civilization faces. While your military academies taught conventional tactics for fighting other galactic species, our academies studied something different. Which was? Admiral Kethvar demanded. Asymmetric warfare, Chen replied. The art of winning battles when you're outnumbered, outgunned, and facing an enemy that should be impossible to defeat. It's what humans have always excelled at. She changed the holographic display to show tactical diagrams. Every human naval victory you laughed at, Salamis, Trafalgar, Midway, Leyte Gulf. They were all examples of smaller forces defeating larger ones through superior strategy, innovative tactics, and the willingness to fight when victory seemed impossible. Elena watched the alien delegates' reactions with satisfaction. These were the same beings who had mocked human military history just months ago. The Devourers, Chen continued, represent exactly the kind of threat our military philosophers have been preparing for, an enemy that fights through overwhelming numbers and superior technology, the kind of enemy that conventional galactic military doctrine has no answer for. Diplomat Janara's light patterns shifted to what Elena's briefings had identified as deep concern. How long have you been preparing for this specific threat? Since we first learned about galactic civilization, Chen answered honestly. Our xenobiologists and strategic planners identified several potential existential threats. Self-replicating mechanical entities were high on that list. Admiral Kethvar made agitated gestures with multiple arms. You're telling us that in 3 years humanity developed weapons technology that exceeds our capabilities by centuries? No, Admiral, Chen said with a slight smile. I'm telling you that we've been developing this technology for much longer than 3 years. We started working on these systems the moment we achieved faster-than-light travel, decades before we made official contact. The implications hit the chamber like a physical force. Humanity hadn't just hidden their military capabilities, they had been secretly advancing their technology, while the galaxy remained unaware of their existence. The quantum stealth systems, Chen explained, allow our ships to exist in folded spacetime. To your sensors, they simply don't exist until we choose to reveal them. The weapons you witnessed at Nexus Prime are based on principles we developed by studying the fundamental forces of the universe, rather than simply building bigger versions of existing technology. County speaker. Zixthara stood slowly, his tall frame seeming to shake. Admiral Chen, why are you revealing this information now? What do you want from the Council? Before Chen could answer, alarms began sounding throughout the chamber. Emergency broadcasts activated on every screen, showing urgent reports from across the galaxy. The lead broadcast showed a Zephyrian news anchor, her compound eyes wide with terror. This is Galactic News Network with breaking coverage. Long-range deep space monitors have detected a massive disturbance at the galaxy's edge. Preliminary reports suggest the approach of a Devourer armada numbering in the millions of units. The chamber erupted in panic. Representatives began shouting in dozens of languages while translation devices struggled to keep up. Elena heard fragments of conversation. Impossible numbers. End of civilization. Nowhere to run. Admiral Chen waited for the initial panic to subside before speaking again. Her voice cut through the chaos with military precision. That council speaker is why I'm revealing this information now, she said. The force that attacked Kethmore and threatened Nexus Prime was just a scouting expedition. The real Devourer invasion is about to begin. She gestured to her holographic display, which now showed tactical projections of the approaching threat. Our deep space monitoring stations detected the main Devourer force 6 months ago. They number approximately 10 million individual constructs, supported by countless smaller units. They will reach the galaxy's core worlds in less than 2 weeks. The silence that followed was the silence of species confronting their own extinction. The Galactic Defense Force, Admiral Kethvar said quietly, even at full strength, numbers fewer than 200,000 ships. We cannot possibly stand against 10 million Devourers. She looked around. The industrial world of Nexus Prime had been the pride of the Veltar civilization for over 3 centuries. Its crystalline cities sparkled like jewels across 5 continents. while massive orbital factories produced everything from starship components to quantum processors. 3 billion beings called it home: Veltar, Zephyrians, Nethrim, and dozens of other species working together in one of the galaxy's most successful multicultural colonies. Now it was about to die. Captain Jelkan of the Veltar Defense Corps stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the evacuation efforts with growing despair. Thousands of civilian ships fled the planet's surface in chaotic streams, carrying barely 1% of the population to safety. The rest would have to face the Devourers with nothing but hope and prayer. "Captain," his communications officer reported, her crystalline form flickering with stress patterns. "Long-range sensors detect the Devourer fleet. Estimated arrival in 4 hours." Jelkan's faceted surface dimmed with resignation. 4 hours to evacuate 3 billion people. It was impossible. Even if they had 1,000 times more ships, it still wouldn't be enough. "How many Devourer units?" he asked. "Sensor readings are difficult to interpret, sir. The mechanical interference is enormous. But preliminary counts suggest at least 5,000 individual constructs." 5,000. Jelkan remembered the reports from Kethmore. A force half that size had destroyed the entire galactic defense force in less than 4 hours. His small escort fleet of 30 ships wouldn't last 30 minutes. "Sir," another officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the fleeing civilian vessels. They're asking if we should surrender to minimize casualties." Jelkan considered the question. Surrender to machines that consumed entire worlds? There was no surrender against the Devourers. There was only survival or consumption. "Tell them we fight," he said quietly. "If we must die, we die protecting those we can." The bridge crew acknowledged his orders with the calm professionalism of soldiers who knew they were facing their last battle. Jelkan felt proud of them, even as his heart broke for the billions they couldn't save. 3 hours later, the Devourers arrived. Jelkan had seen the intelligence reports, but nothing had prepared him for the reality. The mechanical constructs emerged from hyperspace like a plague of metal insects, each one the size of a small moon. Their surfaces bristled with weapons, construction equipment, and harvesting tools. Behind them came swarms of smaller units, fighters, bombers, and processing drones by the millions. "All ships," Jelkan broadcast to his small fleet, "engage the enemy. Protect the civilian evacuation ships as long as possible." The battle began immediately. Jelkan's ships opened fire with everything they had: plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes, and particle beam arrays. The weapons that had once seemed so powerful now felt like toys against the Devourer constructs. The enemy response was overwhelming. Beams of destructive energy lanced out from the mechanical fleet, vaporizing Jelkan's ships one by one. Within minutes, his 30-vessel fleet was reduced to 15, then 10, then 5. "Captain," his tactical officer shouted over the sound of alarms, "the lead Devourer constructs are beginning planetary bombardment. They're targeting the major cities." Jelkan watched in horror as beams of molecular disassembly struck Nexus Prime's surface. Entire cities vanished in flashes of light, their matter converted into raw materials for the Devourers to use. Millions of lives ended in seconds. "All remaining ships fall back to the civilian convoy," he ordered. "We can't stop them, but we can buy time for more people to escape." That's when space itself seemed to ripple. At first, Jelkan thought it was another Devourer weapon. But the ripples were different, smoother, more controlled. They spread across the void like waves on a calm lake. And then something impossible happened. A ship appeared. Not the sudden flash of a hyperspace jump, not the gradual materialization of a cloaking device deactivating. This vessel simply emerged from nowhere, as if it had been hiding in the spaces between reality itself. Jelkan stared at his tactical display in disbelief. The ship was enormous, easily 10 times larger than his flagship. Its design was unlike anything in the galactic databases. Sleek and predatory, it looked more like a living creature than a manufactured vessel. Along its hull, he could make out markings in an alphabet he didn't recognize. "Captain," his communications officer said, her voice filled with wonder, "we're receiving a transmission, audio only in Standard Galactic." "Put it through." A human voice filled the bridge, calm and confident despite the chaos surrounding them. "This is Captain Marcus Torres of the USS Leviathan. All civilian vessels continue your evacuation. We'll handle things from here." Jelkan's crystalline form flickered with confusion. "USS Leviathan? That's a human ship?" His intelligence officer quickly accessed the galactic databases. "Sir, there's no record of any human vessel called Leviathan. According to our files, the largest human ship is barely a tenth the size of what we're seeing." "Impossible," Jelkan whispered. "Humans don't have ships like this. They don't have the technology, the resources, the military infrastructure." On his tactical display, the massive human vessel began moving toward the Devourer fleet. It moved with impossible grace for something so large, sliding through space like a shark through water. The Devourers noticed the newcomer immediately. The entire mechanical fleet began to turn, bringing thousands of weapons to bear on the single human ship. Jelkan had seen what those weapons could do. They had just destroyed his entire fleet and were currently dismantling a planet. "Human vessel," Jelkan broadcast frantically. "Retreat immediately. You're facing 5,000 Devourer constructs. No single ship can survive that kind of firepower." Captain Torres's voice came back, still impossibly calm. "Captain Jelkan, I appreciate your concern, but you're about to learn something important about human naval traditions." "What are you talking about?" "You're about to learn that when humans tell stories about impossible victories against overwhelming odds, we're not bragging about the past. We're making promises about the future." The Devourer fleet opened fire. Thousands of molecular disassembly beams, plasma cannons, and quantum weapons converged on the USS Leviathan. The combined firepower was enough to vaporize a small moon. Jelkan closed his eyes, not wanting to watch the brave human ship die. But when he opened them, the Leviathan was still there. More than that, it was completely unharmed. Some kind of energy field surrounded the ship, bending the Devourer weapons away like light through a prism. The beams that struck the field simply vanished, absorbed or redirected in ways that Jelkan's sensors couldn't explain. "Impossible," he breathed. "What kind of shield technology?" The Leviathan began to return fire. What happened next would be talked about in military academies for the next 1,000 years. The human ship's weapons were unlike anything in galactic civilization. Instead of simple energy beams or projectiles, the Leviathan seemed to fire pieces of reality itself. One weapon created expanding spheres of absolute zero temperature, flash freezing entire Devourer constructs in seconds. Another generated gravity wells that crushed the mechanical units into compact balls of metal. A third weapon seemed to age its targets rapidly, causing the Devourers to rust and decay in real time. But the most terrifying weapon of all was something the sensors couldn't even classify. It looked like a beam of pure darkness that simply erased whatever it touched. Not destroyed, not vaporized, erased as if it had never existed at all. The Devourer fleet tried to respond, but their weapons were useless against the Leviathan's defenses. Meanwhile, the human ship moved through their formations like a predator among prey, destroying construct after construct with methodical precision. "Captain," Jelkan's tactical officer whispered, "the Leviathan is targeting their command units. It's not just firing randomly, it's systematically dismantling their command structure." Jelkan watched in amazement as the human ship demonstrated tactical knowledge that shouldn't have been possible. Somehow, Captain Torres knew exactly which Devourer units were the most important, which ones controlled the others, and which ones needed to be destroyed first. The battle lasted exactly 17 minutes. When it ended, 5,000 Devourer constructs had been reduced to drifting scrap metal. The mechanical plague that had destroyed the galaxy's most powerful fleet had been eliminated by a single human ship that, according to all official records, didn't exist. The USS Leviathan hung motionless in space for a moment, as if surveying its work. Then Captain Torres's voice filled the communication channels once more. "Nexus Prime Defense Force, this is Captain Torres. The immediate threat has been eliminated. Continue evacuation operations, but the planet is no longer in danger." Jelkan found his voice. "Captain Torres, how is this possible? How does humanity possess such advanced technology, such powerful weapons?" There was a pause before Torres replied. "Captain, 3 months ago your people laughed at human myths and legends. You dismissed our naval traditions as primitive stories. You said our victories were meaningless because we'd never faced real galactic warfare. Yes, that's true. The Battle of the Galactic Core began at dawn on what would later be called Victory Day, across 1,000 worlds. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the USS Ragnarok, humanity's command flagship, watching as the largest military engagement in galactic history unfolded before her. Through the massive viewscreen, she could see the Devourer armada stretching across space like a mechanical storm. 10 million constructs advancing in perfect formation, their dark hulls blotting out the stars. All fleet commanders report status, Chen ordered calmly. The responses came from across the defensive line that shouldn't have existed. Captain Torres from the USS Leviathan. Hunter Squadron ready, Admiral. Commander Jackson from HMS Victory Heavy Artillery Division standing by. Captain Rodriguez from USS Midway. Carrier Group Alpha prepared for launch operations. Each ship represented a legend from human naval history, now transformed into reality on the grandest possible stage. But they weren't alone. Zephyrian Swarm Fleet reports ready, came Admiral Kethvar's voice over the communication channel. All fighter squadrons prepared for coordinated strike operations. Veltar Crystal Guard standing by, added Diplomat Janara, who had volunteered to command her people's shield ships. Energy barrier generators at full power. Nethrum Phase Fleet ready for quantum disruption operations, reported the gaseous being whose name translated roughly as Stormwind of Vengeance. Chen smiled slightly. 3 months ago, these species had laughed at human military traditions. Today they followed human battle plans with desperate hope. Admiral, her tactical officer reported, the Devourer fleet is entering optimal engagement range. Their lead elements will reach the outer defense perimeter in 15 minutes. Chen nodded. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. Today we face an enemy that believes victory is assured through overwhelming numbers. They've never encountered human naval doctrine. Today we show them why that's been their greatest mistake. She paused, looking at the faces of her bridge crew, humans who had trained their entire lives for this moment. Remember, we're not just fighting for humanity today. We're fighting for every species that ever looked at impossible odds and chose to fight anyway. Make our ancestors proud. The Devourer fleet struck first. Millions of molecular disassembly beams lanced across space, striking the defensive line with enough energy to vaporize planets. But the beams struck something they had never encountered before. Coordinated multi-species shield technology. The Veltar crystal ships had formed a protective barrier, their energy fields overlapping and reinforcing each other. Behind them, Nethrum phase ships created quantum distortions that bent the Devourer weapons harmlessly away. And protecting both alien formations, human ships projected reality distortion fields that made entire sections of space temporarily immune to molecular disassembly. First wave absorbed successfully, Chen's tactical officer reported. All shield generators holding. Commence Phase 2, Chen ordered. What happened next had never been attempted in galactic military history. Human carrier ships launched not just their own fighters but coordinated swarms of alien craft, in a formation that maximized each species' natural advantages. Zephyrian fighters, with their incredible maneuverability, wove between Devourer constructs in patterns too complex for mechanical minds to predict. Veltar crystal fighters used their energy-based weapons to overload Devourer power systems. Nethrum phase fighters appeared and disappeared unpredictably, striking from impossible angles. And coordinating all of them were human tactical controllers who had studied every successful fighter engagement in their species' history. Admiral, Captain Torres reported from the Leviathan, enemy formation is beginning to fragment. Their command units are having trouble coordinating responses to multi-species tactics. Chen watched her tactical display with satisfaction. The Devourers had been designed to fight conventional galactic military doctrine, ship against ship, formation against formation. They had no programming for the chaos of human-style asymmetric warfare, combined with alien technological advantages. Begin Phase 3, she ordered. All heavy units commence hammer and anvil operations. The human dreadnoughts began their attack run. Each ship bore the name of a legendary Earth vessel: USS Iowa, HMS Dreadnought, IJN Yamato, USS Enterprise. But these weren't copies of ancient ships. They were evolutions of the tactical principles those vessels had represented. USS Thermopylae led a squadron of heavy cruisers into the heart of the Devourer formation, using the same principles that had made the ancient Greek stand famous. They created a choke point in space itself, forcing the mechanical enemies to attack through a narrow corridor where superior numbers meant nothing. HMS Nelson's squadron demonstrated the power of concentrated firepower, focusing their reality-warping weapons on single targets to achieve devastating local superiority. USS Constitution showed the value of speed and maneuverability, striking fast and disappearing before the Devourers could respond. But it was USS Midway that proved the decisive factor. "Admiral," Captain Kim reported from the carrier, "we're ready to launch the final strike package." Chen looked at her tactical display. The Devourer fleet was in chaos, their formations broken by human tactics they couldn't understand. But there were still millions of them, and they were adapting to human strategies with mechanical efficiency. "Launch all fighters," Chen ordered. "All species, all squadrons. Show them what happens when the galaxy fights as one." The final assault was beautiful and terrible to witness. Thousands of fighters from dozens of species swept toward the Devourer command ships in a coordinated strike that represented the best of galactic civilization working together under human tactical doctrine. Scifian pilots used their natural swarming instincts to confuse Devourer targeting systems. Feltar crystal fighters synchronized their weapons to create devastating energy cascades. Nethrum phase fighters struck from dimensions the Devourers couldn't even detect. And leading them all were human pilots flying fighters named after ancient Earth aircraft. Mustang, Spitfire, Zero, Lightning. Each one a symbol of human determination to win against impossible odds. "Direct hit on the primary command nexus," reported Captain Kim. "Secondary command ships are losing coordination." "The entire fleet is beginning to shut down," Chen watched as 10 million Devourer constructs, deprived of their central coordination, began to drift helplessly through space. Without their command structure, they were just machines running basic programming. "All units commence cleanup operations," Chen ordered. "But remember, we're not here to destroy. We're here to protect." The aftermath of the Battle of the Galactic Core took days to fully comprehend. 10 million Devourer constructs had been neutralized not through superior firepower, but through superior strategy. Human tactical doctrine, combined with the unique strengths of every galactic species, had achieved what conventional military thinking said was impossible. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood in the same Galactic Council chamber, where she had been humiliated 3 months earlier. But the atmosphere was completely different now. Where once there had been mockery and dismissal, now there was respect and gratitude. Council Speaker Zixthara rose from his seat, his tall frame somehow more dignified than before. "Ambassador Vasquez, Admiral Chen, on behalf of the Galactic Council and every free species in the galaxy, I offer our deepest gratitude. You have saved us all." Elena stepped forward, her voice carrying the confidence that came from representing a species that had just proven its worth. "Speaker Zixthara, humanity didn't save the galaxy alone. Every species contributed to this victory. Scifian pilots, Veltar shield operators, Nethrum phase technicians. They all fought with courage and skill." Admiral Chen joined Elena at the center of the chamber. "What humanity contributed," she said, "was the knowledge that any challenge, no matter how overwhelming, can be overcome through unity, preparation, and the willingness to fight when fighting seems impossible." Diplomat Jen Ara's crystalline form glowed with patterns Elena now recognized as deep respect. "Admiral, 3 months ago we laughed at your myths and legends. We dismissed your naval traditions as primitive stories. How wrong we were." "You weren't wrong to question us," Chen replied diplomatically. "You were wrong to stop listening. Human myths aren't just stories about our past. They're promises about our future. Every impossible victory we've ever achieved taught us something about winning the next impossible battle." Admiral Kethvar, the Zephyrian commander who had survived both the disaster at Kethmore and the victory at the Galactic Core, spoke with genuine admiration. "Your species has taught us all a valuable lesson. Superior technology means nothing without superior strategy. Greater numbers mean nothing without greater unity." Elena felt a surge of pride as she looked around the chamber. These beings who had once seen humanity as cosmic comedians now looked at them with respect earned through actions rather than words. Council Speaker Zixthara made a formal announcement. "By unanimous vote of the Galactic Council, humanity is granted full membership in galactic civilization, with all rights and privileges thereof. Furthermore, we formally request that Earth Command assume responsibility for galactic defense coordination."